So hi everybody and welcome back. This is Unreal Engine 5 full game tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 54 and in this video we are talking about our game, of course, but let's see where we are. First of all, we finished here some parts and we jumped to the block gameplay, but actually we have not finished start game. When I open up this overview start game, where is it? Here. Then we can see we finished here this widget for main menu, for the widget for the input controls and the pre-story, but all three are just prototypes which are not polished, which means not even finished prototypes, let's say it so. But the worst part is we have not finished the save game. We have think about the save game at start, and like I said, basic style is also not right setup. So there is actually much work to do here, but we already jumped into gameplay in our last video, and in gameplay we finished in our last video this. We created a blueprint with instruction for text and record, and a side note, the speaker produced you a little bit bad sound because I'm recording with my microphone far away. It sounds a little bit bad, but in real it sounds okay. Okay, that's what. And in this video we want talk again about this blueprint which we created in our last video, because I said what I showed you is a bad version. It's a very fast and simple version, but it's a bad version because it wastes a lot of time. And when we jump here to Unreal Engine, jump to our created folder, here's our game development folder, here is our blueprints, and this is the blueprint which we created. And you can see this is just a blueprint who is creating the widget, but we have also created this widget itself, which is this gameplay. And I said now we can create all the instructions here just by, for example, duplicating. You can go here, just duplicate this one, write here the next name for it. For example, here use lighter was it. Now I want check pistol or something, pistol. And then you can just open this one up and then change here the text. Let's write here, I don't know, what is that? Okay, the problem is here. Is this another widget, by the way? Yes. All right, let's go here, create binding, remove binding here, and say text, and say here text, whatever, what is that? Use check pistol. All right, something like this, and you can see this one, you can then save, compile, save, and here you have your next widget, which you can bind in the next blueprint which you create. For example, then that was the first one which we created, and then you say, okay, I create here now another blueprint. So you go here, go to this other blueprint part, to this blueprint, and now you can duplicate this blueprint, and then you can just bind this widget in. And yeah, that's are the 4 steps or 5 steps which we have to do for every instruction which you want. It is fast, it is not slow for prototyping. I mean, it's not too worse, but it's not efficient, and that was the problem, because you are creating now, you can see many blueprints, and you are creating many widgets, and we are wasting much of the place, which we should not do. So let's delete this. Instead, in this video, I want to talk how to use tables. We can avoid creating many widgets. We are just creating one widget. We are creating just one blueprint, perhaps, and then we will use them only. And that's it. That we are saving space, and that's worth it to use tables. But before we can use tables, of course, we have to know how to use tables. And I will just go fast over tables. You have to read this in the documentation with more details, but I will show you all the main parts how to create a table. And let's get started. So you can see I have already tested creating a table, and you can here already see to create a table we need 2 parts. We need a struct, and we need then create a table with the struct. So when I try, let's make here a new folder fast, right click, new folder, let's call it table. we will, or let's call it right, table, oh, let's make it gameplay. Oh, come on. Table gameplay, for example. And later we change this here, but then we go here, right click, and now we go to, where are the tables? Miscellaneous. And you can see here are more tables, not only one table. We have to choose the right one. The right one which we want is just data table, which is a simple table. There are some curved tables, composite data tables, and so more. But we start with this data table here. And when we try to create a data table, it is asking for a structure. A structure is something like a class, but Unreal Engine 4 treat them just as a container who contains many variables. And this structure will create, or let's say define, the variables which you are using in your table. Let's see this. So right now we don't have the structure, but before we go on, let me open up a table. For example, this one. I have this one already created, and we can see I have here on top something like a row name, a source string, and a sound wave. And like I said before, to create this table here, we need a structure, because like I showed you right now, this Unreal Engine asks for a structure, and this structure is defining how this what you are writing here on top. For example, this line here, source and sound wave, you have to define it in the structure, right? And in my structure, you can see I just defined these two names here. Let's compare this. You can see here it's a source string, sound wave, and you can see I created this variable, just source string here as a string, and sound wave, this is the audio file, as a sound wave, which is the wave file. And you have to do this, and when you do this, then you can use this table. And let's do this and see in action how we make this. One more note, you have not to create this row name. This is defined already, right? So important, that's very important, because there we can make some mistakes. You are just defining the other parts here. The first, let's say the first column you are not defining, and all the other parts you are defining. All right, so let's create this table now. We go back to our folder. We go here to my table folder. Now I know I have to create first a struct to use a table. So where are the structs? You go here to the blueprints, and here's a struct. And like I said, this we need to define our table. Let's call this, I don't know the convention. Let's write it struct underscore table, which we want to use, gameplay table, for example. So my gameplay table, let's open this one up and let's dock this on top. Very important. So you can see the struct here. Sometimes you see nothing. And if you see nothing, for example, when there is nothing like this one, sometimes this happens. Then you go on top to window, and here you have to open up the windows which are available in the struct. So for example, here I need this one and I need this one. Sometimes they are not here, just so. And then you have here switch the right window which you need, and then in structure you have now to define the variables which you want to use in your table. Very important. Again, when you watch this table, these variables which you are going to define are not this content here. It is just the title here on top, right? So in my case, I said here the source string, which is the text which I want to use later. And then I called it sound wave, which is the sound which I want to use later. It is not the content which we are defining here at this point, only the title. And then you can call it, like me, for example, source string, and then you change this to the right type, because I want here text. This is the text which I want to include. And I need one more variable. You can see my table needs more. I need this column as well. And then you can add here on top is add variable. So we add one, and I call this source wave. All right, and of course I have to change this to a wave. And where is the wave here? It must be anyways. Here, sound wave. I think it's an object. It's okay. All right, now I have changed the type and the source, and you can save. We have a struct now. This struct I want to use to create a table in in Unreal Engine 5. So we go back to our table, and I make the other table now in it here too. Normally you would probably not, perhaps you do this separately. I make it here. So right click. Now we go here to our miscellaneous. Now we go back to our data table, which I wanted at start. And now what you have to do, again, it is asking for pick row struct. Like I said, this row struct is defined in our struct. You choose the one which you want. It says my name is called struct. So let's call this struct. And you can see it pops up already. I have here already, which I have here, gameplay table. So this one is my one. I say okay, and now it creates this table with my defined row on top. All right. So let's call this. This is a data table dt underscore. I call it dt for data table and gameplay. Let's write it also the table, because they are connected here. So important is here that you understand we have now defined with the struct just the head here. And again, sometimes it happens it looks empty, and if it's looking empty, you go again here on top. You can see they are not selected. You select them again, and then you switch to the right table, for example data table, and you have it here. And interesting is when I compare this one now and this one, they look a little bit different, but here we have defined the top line only, and like I said, you have to define only this and this. The first row you are not defining. Here it's not even visible. What you can do is now you can fill this with data, and there are two ways. One way is just here in Unreal Engine 5, which we are doing now to see how this works. Here on top we have some options, and we can add, for example. And now you can see when I scroll this a little bit, can I scroll this? Yes. We can make this here a little bit bigger, and now you can see here the first row name is provided, and that's why I said you should not define it. We are defining only the other ones. All right, so now it looks more like this one. The only difference is here you have just rename it. When you click on it and press right click, you can rename it or just use here the shortcut F2. Then let's make with F2 and then call it what you need. For example, in my case, use lighter. So I know I want instruct the user to use lighter. But of course you don't have to. You can call it let it be. And if you go now down to row editor, you can see we have here our source string. This one, there is nothing in it. And we have our source wave, which we have. And like I said, you can manually right now, okay, use the lighter. And this is this one which will pop up later in our gameplay. Use the lighter. And here I have here, if you have the right wave, use lighter, because I have recorded this one. And now I have filled this table in. Let's save this one. And that's one way, but you can see the problem with this way is that can take a lot of time, but as a beginner, no worry. But what you can do is also, and a little bit more advanced people will do this, is you can just export, or let's say import another table. You can see we have here something like this is not this array import. This here we can use. Let's see where I can use that actually. Where was this export option? I don't know right now where the export option is. Normally what you can do is you can let's see if it's here. I forgot where the export and import button is. But that's not so important. Important is now when you read in the documentation, there is an option you can export this here to an CSV file, right? So I called my test CSV, and this CSV file is just a normal text document. Let me open up this one at least. Yeah, let me open up this one here fast. My one, this one. Show, right click, show in Explorer. Where is that? I'm blind again. Here, show in Explorer, and in Explorer I have a CSV file. Let me see this. Where is this in my content? Where's my content? Here. And now you can see this file. Oops, there's no, you can't see it. Second, now you can see it. So here, this here, I have just exported it and opened up with just a simple text editor. But important is you can open up this also with Excel or a more advanced tool where you can create this here with text, or like I said, with Excel there are some automated tools which create all things. And important is now it's easier to manipulate this. Or for example, instead of all time clicking here plus, then selecting and going here and manually, you are just doing all here fast, very fast. And if you have an Excel program, you know this table, this with tables, you just go through it. And you can even automate this line numbers here. But important is here again, this format, that you keep this format here. You are just providing, yes, you have to provide this here. You are not providing the head here. That's very important. In here, you are just providing this one. Something like that. So read the documentation for this one if you use this. This one is the faster version, but for us it's okay. We are doing this version. We built in Unreal Engine. That's also okay for start. All right, so with that said, I think that's so very basics of tables. The question is now, okay, we have now the table. How do we use this table actually? Because just now we created the tables, and I think the use case we will do in the next video, because research again tables, read this a little bit more through, more in detail, because I showed you just a little bit the surface on it, not really the details which you should understand. And then but what we are doing, I can show you in the next video fast, is something like this. We coding and using the table in a very simple way. And how I use this actually. Yeah, something like so that I do what? That I create here something like string. And then I open this one and then I check if this table has this string, and then we are putting out, I show you this next time, how to use this right, because that looks a little bit now messy. It's very easy, it's very straightforward. All right, if you have any questions or any complaints like old time, write it in the comments, and see you in the next. And like old time, have fun and never give up. Bye.